you've written a book about that day. And like you said, the media cycle is so short or ruthless, or I don't know what it is, but it's almost like everyone's forgot that.
What's a
And it's like,
decision?
it's incredible. It's like, what have you done for us lately? It's just, it was such an epic day. It was such an epic event. It was such a tragedy that happened to anybody, any presidential candidate. And then obviously his reaction is one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. You wrote an entire book about that. That's serious. And it's not like you're not a busy guy. Why did you decide to do that?
Well,
And what did you do? What did you uncover?
so the book, and thank you. The book is Bulletproof: How a Shotman for Donald Trump Took Out Joe Biden. It comes out October 22nd, so it comes out before the election. It is the first book written on the Trump assassination and the only book that comes out before the election. Look, I didn't intend to write this book. I had no plan to write this book. It's the idea of writing two books in 1 year is kind of insane, and it, but at the same time, I don't think any of us realized that all of this would happen in 1 year. And so the only response that I could think of was to put it all down on paper to become sort of that first draft of history, but also because of the fact that, as you say, the corporate media has decided to completely take this story out of the cycle. And corporate media's greatest power, their greatest power isn't the fact check. Their greatest power isn't actually their bias. Their greatest power is story selection. And what do I mean by this? In story selection, it is they can control what you talk about and what you don't talk about. And if they want to omit something, they can erase it completely. And that's exactly what's been done with the two events that we saw in those 9 days in July, from July 13th all the way up to the day that Joe Biden drops out of office. These events are inextricably and indelibly linked. And if you don't understand that, then you can't actually understand the system under which we live. And we make the case because when you just go back and look at the timing, from a political and geopolitical sense, Donald Trump had yet to name his vice president on that day. Remember, he doesn't name JD Vance until the Monday after the 13th. So he names JD on the 15th. And in the book, by the way, we go through day by day. So the days prior, the days during, and the days after. We actually give a day by day, step by step, recreated in parallel timeline of events of Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks. And in all of this, so we just go back to the timing. Donald Trump hasn't named his VP yet, and the RNC hasn't happened yet. This is the weekend prior. So if, say, hypothetically, you wanted to change the entire makeup of the RNC candidacy, if you wanted to end Trumpism, if you were someone who stood for, as I was talking about before, the collective West, if you were someone who perhaps had a bone to pick with the state of Iran, if you were someone who wanted endless war, this was the perfect opportunity and truly the last moment that you had to be able to stop all of this and then shape your own narrative going forward. Because had that bullet been one inch to the right, Donald Trump would not be the presidential candidate. JD Vance would not be the vice presidential candidate. You probably would have seen an open convention. The convention would have come down to, and we go through these scenarios in the book, it would have come down to essentially Nikki Haley versus Donald Trump Jr. And there would have been a massive pitch to put Nikki Haley on the ticket. And remember, Nikki Haley at this point, who is someone that's totally in part of the neoconservative project, she is totally part of the Collective West project. She absolutely views America's role in the world exactly the same as how Kamala Harris apparently now views America's role in the world. You notice Kamala Harris has eschewed all of her woke talking points, her leftist talking points. There's no more defund the police. There's no more BLM. And suddenly it's America needs to be the world leader. America needs to stand up for our alliances. America needs to spread democracy around the world. And I'm scratching my head saying, wait a minute, I've heard these things before, but I've never heard that from Kamala Harris. She's always been a candidate of the left. It feels like someone's going in and flipped whoever has changed the teleprompter that she's reading off of. Someone more powerful has come in and put it there. So yes, you would have had Nikki Haley essentially installed as the Republican candidate, or perhaps a very strong push to do so in order to reshape American politics and America's standing in the world. So by in, remember, but going back to 2016, it was supposed to be Jeb Bush versus Hillary Clinton. The ruling class, the ruling establishment will give you this sort of very tight choice. It's sort of a false choice on the Overton window of candidates. There's the candidate of Jeb, the candidate of Hillary. One's a Republican, one's a Democrat, but both are members of extremely high-powered and connected political families. They're both members of political dynasties. They both stand for essentially the same things when it comes to geopolitics, when it comes to finance, when it comes to borders and migration, when it comes to all of these things, they stand for the same issues. There's a few social issues with it, which they will contend about, and typically Hillary Clinton would be further, for further progress, and Jeb Bush would just be for slower progress. But on the main issues, and the bulk 80% of issues, they are in lockstep. That's the kind of politics that the uniparty, the ruling class in Washington, D.C. and London wanted to have returned. With Donald Trump and his merry band of pirates that have come together and totally uprooted that entire system. And so going back to the events of July 13, again, I'm not putting complicity on Nikki Haley or any of the people that I've just mentioned, but I will note that from a hypothetical perspective, that if you have to ask in these situations, and I say this as a prior intelligence officer, cui bono, cui malo, who benefits and who suffers? Who benefits and who suffers? And when you put it through that context, it's very clear to see who would have benefited from the removal of Donald Trump that day.
What are the three big takeaways from your book that might surprise us, narratives that are glossed over in the mainstream media that haven't even been uncovered?
Okay, so really, when it comes to this Thomas Matthew Crooks, the questions of how he was able to penetrate security the way that he did, and these questions of did he really act alone? This is a serious question that we dig into very deeply in the book, and we've actually hired a private investigation firm, so private investigators that are going throughout Western Pennsylvania, and by the way, I should say, are currently going through Western Pennsylvania because the investigation is ongoing. And because the investigation is ongoing, we aren't even going to be able to put the final report in this initial draft of the book. So we'll be releasing multiple editions as the investigation continues. Again, we're trying to get a copy out before the election, but we know there's going to be more to this. There's going to be more to the story. I'm actually going to be doing a rally with Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones in Pennsylvania, in Reading, Pennsylvania on September 23rd. And we are preparing to hold a briefing on everything that we've learned up to this at that point. Things like, probably one of the biggest ones are that I don't think a lot of people realize yet are the fact that so Thomas Matthew Crooks, we know that he went to the shooting range that was in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. This shooting range was also frequented by federal law enforcement. This was the federal law enforcement shooting range. All of the three-letter agencies, whether you're DHS, whether you're ATF, FBI, this was the range where you were going in the area for training. We know that he was going there. We also know because we pulled the records. We actually pulled the sign-in records from that shooting range. We know that for the majority of the times that he was going to that, Thomas Matthew Crooks was going to that range, he was not going there alone. That he was going there with someone else. And whether that's the father, whether that's another member, that's something that we're still drilling down on. Something else that people don't know. We uncovered and actually wrote the story on Human Events in the course of this, that there is a grand jury that is currently active in Western Pennsylvania at the federal level. So again, the mainstream media, the local media, no interest whatsoever. Yet apparently the federal government under the DOJ has a grand jury that's open right now in terms of looking at potentially other accomplices or other individuals to find culpable for this event. Third, when it comes to these questions of the foreign encrypted email accounts that Thomas Matthew Crooks had, we've reached out to members of the one of the deployments that I did, a couple of deployments that I did in the intelligence community were with explosives ordnance disposal units, EOD Mobile Unit 5 and CTF 75 in East Asia. And that's a small community, the bomb disposal guys in the military. And I've reached out to a number of those contacts, conduct analysis on the photographs of the IEDs. So the IEDs, the story of the fact that this guy had bombs with a remote detonator on him, located in his vehicle, in his Hyundai Sonata, that these are highly sophisticated. The fact that they were in ammo cans, not pipe bombs. A lot of people think they were pipe bombs similar to the RNC DNC situation from January 6, 2021, that these were not pipe bombs. These were not indicative of the basic types of IED that a domestic terrorist would use. These were sophisticated. The fact that they had remotes were sophisticated. And the fact remains that it, all intents and purposes, appear that he had help either with the design of these things or potentially even with the building and testing of devices and information that we've recovered involving potential test locations in the Bethel Park area. So all indications are that he was not just doing this all on his own. Now, does that mean that each person that he was working with, or if these potential individuals knew what he planned to do? Again, we're going to require more information on that, and we do have an ongoing investigation.
Hey, I know investing in crypto is scary. It takes a real leap of faith because there are so many scams, rug pulls, and bad actors out there. It's a dangerous business, which is why 95% of people lose all their money. Well, that's why I created the London Real Investment Club, so you can access the hottest deals on the planet and use the crypto bull market to create the generational wealth that you deserve. Join my team of over 100 people from around the world that are making millions of dollars behind the scenes investing in blockchain, AI, Web3 games, DeFi, Bitcoin, and more. Don't miss out. Click the link below to book a call with one of my team now. But hurry, this bull market will end soon.
I know investing crypto can be scary. That's why you gotta join the investment club. Pull the trigger. Let's do this.